It's 9 o'clock on Monday, July 20th. Going to go ahead and call the Board of County Commissioners Executive Cabinet meeting to order. Let the record reflect that we have all three commissioners present. Before I get started with the agenda with Amelia Clark and her presentation, I do want to make an announcement for the record. Before we start our formal 9 a.m. Executive Cabinet meeting for July 20th, 2020, I want the record to reflect that the weekly agenda for today's Executive Cabinet meeting was not published to Civic Plus. Unfortunately, Civic Plus would not allow the clerk of the board to post the weekly agenda. Although the weekly agenda was not posted on Civic Plus, state law does not prohibit us from taking action on items on the weekly agenda. The clerk of the board did post weekly agenda outside the BOCC office. So just want to state that for the record, in case anybody wants to take issue with this. Amelia, welcome to the Board of County Commissioners. So you're going to share with us an update of what's going on in your world. So
sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Good. Just wanted to take time, a few months ago when the Board of County Commissioners approved the initial CARES budget. We talked about me coming back later in the summer, July, August, just to have an understanding of where we are with the spending and if any additional funds will be needed. So you all should have in front of you, I sent to Gina, where we are currently with our total expenses. There you go. Thank you for putting that up there. And, we're a little over where we thought we would be, not horribly. I think that you'd already approved the $6 million, and with my projections, we're looking at probably about 7.7. Due to the increased cost that goes along with contact tracing and doing all of the appropriate epidemiology work, we did have to increase the number, right, related to bringing on more contact tracers, and we have a contract in place with the Public Health Institute to help us with some of that so that we aren't taking on long-term costs or legacy cost at the health district. We also, in our conversations related to the special pathogens lab, which has been talked about at the recovery committee, we are working to increase local lab capacity here in Spokane to hopefully get tests run a little more quickly. That is taking longer than what we had anticipated, but we did need to increase the cost of one of the machines that we'll take to do that. So just wanted to really, I don't have an additional request at this time, but want to make sure that I keep you all informed on the CARES expenditures and where we're headed. I can answer questions if you have those for me.
Okay. Mary or Josh, do you have any questions for Amelia?
So Amelia, talking about the testing, because I think that's part of the key. I had a friend who went and got a test and it took over a week to get the results.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and unfortunately, so yeah, that's really what we're looking at. And some places are actually longer than a week right now because the labs nationwide are tapped out, basically. We have gone ahead and it's very hard to purchase this type of machine. So what we did is we've completed, the PO, we are on the back order form and everything to get the machine here. But it's everywhere is having a very hard time with lab results. I have asked the Secretary Weisman and Kathy Lofi to attend our recovery group meeting I've reached out to them just so they can maybe update the community and the elected officials that serve on that committee related to testing capacity, because even some of the things that we've tried here in the state, such as one of the labs at WSU being kind of retrofitted, if you will, to, I think that that's normally a veterinary lab, but they are going to do COVID testing there. They've run into some hiccups related to Medicare licensure in order to be able to do that. So but I think that they're going to come in and be able to give like a bigger picture to that Tuesday morning recovery committee group on what does testing look like.
Okay, so are they going to do that tomorrow?
No, it's not going to be tomorrow. I'm waiting to hear back from their assistants on getting it scheduled, but it will be within the next, I think it'll probably be the next one. Tomorrow's the 21st. I think it'll probably be the 28th.
Okay.
Still working, I'm still trying to work to get that figured out.
Contact tracing, that's kind of the other one that's been a bigger expense than I think we thought initially.
Well, yeah, it's been, that's been a huge expense. We've actually even needed to, some of the conference rooms at the health district have now become temporary work sites to just bring in enough people. And then we have as many working out in the community as possible or working from home. But yeah, that's been a much bigger expense than anticipated.
So go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, with the contact tracing, I know early on a lot of that was being done by volunteers. Is that all paid individuals now, or is there still a portion that's volunteers?
It's a mix. We do have some retired medical professionals helping us. If you've ever worked with volunteers, you know that it can take a lot of management time to manage volunteers because you're not their first priority per se. So using some of the funding, what we were able to do is, like, the Public Health Institute has basically, they just kind of have these cadres of people that will go out and contact trace. So we have one cadre of 11 that is working directly for Spokane right now. And then we wrote into the contract that, based on surge numbers or different things, we can get more staff, more of their staff to help us. They're based in Oregon, I believe.
So based upon what you know now and the numbers that you're looking at, to get us to the end of the year, we probably need the health district probably needs another 7.3 million to cover both the 600,000 plus shortfall plus another 6 million. Is that a fair estimate, just as a set aside?
I would say that's a fair estimate. I updated the surge projection column just to, reflect what we're seeing currently. And I think by the way the numbers are going and everything I'm reading, I think it's probably pretty safe to say we're going to have a pretty big surge in the fall. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So what we would need for surge protection is that additional about 7.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think in my original, it was around maybe 11 million. So it's gone up 2 million for the surge.
So in terms of timing to receive the funds, what are you looking at in terms of being able to maintain your cash flow and operations?
Right now, cash flow has not really been inhibited. I've, working with Carrie, we have the statement of work and everything done. So we send over, we'll send over invoices to be reimbursed. you know, I don't know, Commissioner, if it's something where you want me to come back in August, or if you want to, you know, we can already tell that we're going to probably hit the 7.7, which is above the 6 million that you originally had approved. So I don't know if it would make sense to approve maybe up to 7.5 or up to 8 million. And I don't, it looks like, is Carrie in the room? I don't know how that works. Hi, Carrie. I don't know how that works with the county, of if we can just do like an addendum to the contract or to the statement of work based on the commissioner's approval.
Ilya, I think the contract, the original contract, I finally got back from you guys for the 6 million. I think it's before the commissioners tomorrow for signature.
Okay.
And then what we would just do is an amendment to that when you were
Okay.
ready to increase the funding amount, when the commissioner's approval at that point. So
Okay.
it's a real simple document that we would do an amendment, and actually, you know, once the commissioners approve the amount, Jerry Gimmel could probably sign the amendment as well. So it's a really fast process.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't want, you know, my biggest, you know, I don't like surprises, and I'm sure none of you all do either. So I thought it was better to go ahead and update you on where I think we're headed now, versus, you know, going a few months longer and being like, oh, wait a minute, we need how many more $1 million? So I'm fine if it's, you know, if we want to do an amendment, or if you would prefer that I, you know, maybe come back in a month for, you know, further direction, but really just wanted you to be in the know and aware.
So what would be the pleasure of the board? I mean, from my standpoint, we're going to do it anyway, so why don't we just go ahead and take care of it now, and then that way we don't, it's just one more thing we don't have to worry about. So, I mean, if we're looking at we're looking at 700,000. I mean, we could authorize another 2 million, and that would get it a little beyond the 7.7 million, and then we'll come back in another month or so and figure out how much more we need to kick in. But right now, it looks like we're at about 13. Was it 13.3 all in? But that's a fungible number. It could change depending upon, you know, how much the resurgence hits us and what other kind of stuff could happen. So what would be the pleasure of the board?
Yeah, I'm fine with like you said, Commissioner French, start with 2, you know, an additional 2 now, and then if when the need comes, come back for more.
Okay.
Is that something we would have to make a motion on right now, or is that just something we can alter, like Carrie was saying, with an amendment tomorrow at our 2 o'clock consent agenda?
Well, I'd say let's go ahead and take care of it now. And then that way she can just bring forward a contract that reflects it, and
Okay.
then we're done with it. Mary?
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm good with that. Take care of things now, and then just know what we need to reserve for.
So,
Oh, go ahead, Carrie.
so Amelia, I don't know if the contract that Gina has right now is for the up to 6 million. In order to do that, it was signed by your board, I believe. So, I mean, we could pull it for tomorrow and then just present, but that would take another 2 weeks because you guys aren't back in on the 11th. Or we could do the up to 6 tomorrow and then do a contract amendment while you guys are gone. Because that's the issue that we have right now. The board.
Let's go ahead and approve the contract the way it is, so we can maintain the flow, and then we'll come back in the 11th and do an amendment to it and add the additional 2. So,
Because Jerry could, you know, typically we just do a down and dirty amendment that would be adding an additional 2 million, and I would send that off to Amelia to have her board sign. Usually I have the other party sign before I present back to you guys.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I'm actually the signatory on it. It didn't have to go to the board. So I was the one who did all the signing, so I can do it either way.
So
So Josh, you want to make amendment to approve, you want to make a motion to amend the contract by $2 million?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, move to approve and authorize the expenditure of an additional $2 million to the Spokane Regional Health District to combat COVID-19 and for any other COVID-19 related expenses, bringing our total authorized expenditures for the Spokane Regional Health District of up to $8 million.
I'll second that.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect motion passed unanimously. Okay?
All
Anything-
right, thank you all. Appreciate it. And, you know, as always, if there are questions or things we can help you with at the health district, please let us know.
Okay, well, we'll see you tomorrow morning.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so that deals with that. Next item on the agenda is CARES funding request from City of Spokane and Spokane Valley. I see that we have Mayor Woodward on the line and Arian is on the line. I do not see Ben Wick. Is he going to be joining us too? Mayor Woodward?
Arian, are you mic'd out?
No, I was just waiting to hear if Commissioner was chatting, or excuse me, Mayor Woodward. I don't know if Mayor Wick was able to attend this morning. He is aware of the item. So I know that Mayor Woodward was going to give the overview, and then there are some staff present in case there's questions related to the ask.
Okay, very good. So Mayor, you're on.
Thank you, and thank you, commissioners, for considering this request for $2 million in CARES Act funding for the Mission Street facility, which would serve as our healthy sheltering during our regional response to COVID when our homeless exit the arena August 13th. And so that funding requests includes the purchase of the building, upgrades to the building, and also upgrades to the city's Cannon Street shelter, which would also assist us starting in November for our regional response to healthy sheltering, physically distanced during COVID. And I know that you had received initially a request of 1.3 million, and then the second request was 2 million. And that is because of increased costs. The first request was a very conservative estimate with a lot of unknowns. And the second request that did jump to 2 million has some increased costs due to just the timeline of the updates at the Cannon Street shelter. Right now, it's very difficult to secure construction and supplies and things like that. So we consider the 2 million amount still pretty conservative, but think that it's in a reasonable amount right now.
Okay, any questions for the mayor? Mary or Josh?
So I guess, Nadine, when we were at the last meeting with Ben Wick and myself, you know, we talked about how this data has come up and why it's COVID related. Can you reiterate that for the group?
Sure. Our regional response to healthy sheltering during COVID continues. We started at the very beginning of all of this at the library, and then we moved to the arena. And the requirement for physical distancing in our shelters continues. Probably as we're getting indications from Dr. Bob Lutz at Regional Health District that we could be operating in this COVID response through spring or even summer of next year. And so our responsibility as a region to offer a healthy sheltering continues.
And then it wasn't just the Cannon shelter, it was all the shelters had experienced.
Right,
as
right.
well.
So we have had to increase our capacity. And we do have a slide if you wanted to know more specific information about what that capacity looks like through physical distancing. And Tisha is on the line, Danzig from CHHS. She can explain how that has changed during our COVID response, if you guys have it there.
Yeah. So I'd be happy to do that with or without.
Jared, it's one over. It starts with Spokane region. There you go.
So in late February, early March, all of our shelters, we conducted an assessment of the capacity given physical distancing. So some of our shelters, for example, have 3 to 6 inches between beds, others have 3 feet. We wanted to better understand what our capacity levels look like. And so this chart sort of helps walk through that, understanding what the adjustments are. So we've had to add additional beds just to keep the baseline number of beds available in the crisis response system open and accessible for folks in accounting for that physical distancing. So that 102 beds at the arena currently that would be transitioning over to Mission is our way of being able to help make sure that there's the same level as our normal permanent shelter system, reduced and adjusted for that physical distancing.
Thank you.
And also, just to remind you too, that the purchase of the Mission Street property after COVID would allow us to keep the building and then transition it to that bridge housing concept that we've been talking about at the regional governance meetings.
So just to follow up on that remark, Mayor, just to confirm, so the Mission Street shelter would operate under the same same structure as the Cannon shelter does today, where it's a drop in, not one of those, not a service oriented shelter yet.
It would operate the way
into.
the arena operates right now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Commissioner, that would be through the remodel renovations at Cannon. And at such time when Cannon has additional capacity, we can begin that transition, particularly once we solidify providers, to start entering into some more bridge services as we're able to move the emergency component back to Cannon. So a lot of this is going to be handshake driven, so that when we finally arrive to a truly dedicated facility at Mission, it will have been so that in a way that we can absorb it over time, given this new dynamic of space capacity because of COVID.
So can you go back to the screen so I can see everybody and be able to track who wants to talk? So just walking through the mechanics of this, so $2 million is the cost for the building and the remodel, but also remodel for the other centers too. Then the property then at Mission, then would that be a facility that would be owned by the county and then contracted with the city to operate, or what's the mechanics of the acquisition of the property?
It was, that's something that we can discuss further, but it's my understanding that it would be owned both jurisdictions.
So we would go into acquiring the property as a partnership then. So the $2 million is the total ask. Is there are we going to share in that cost then? Is there going to be some kind of allocation for the city and the county then, or how are we going to structure that partnership? I'm sorry,
that's
that's the real estate guy in me that's trying to look at, where's the deal on this thing? How does that shake out? And the,
Mayor,
Go ahead.
I think in a lot of ways, this could go either way, as Mayor said. You know, sometimes shared buildings have been a little tricky. So if we want to have this CARES capital allotment allow for the city to, for lack of a better word, have the title on the Mission Street, where we're going to give the incentive for that regional collaboration between the county and the valley comes from that ongoing tie to the strategic 5-year strategic plan for the homeless system that also incorporates some significant joint venture investments by Avista and other potential funders for the operating portion. So this CARES funds would allow us to make that big lift for the capital acquisition. And by approving CARES money for capital on this, it actually frees up some, quote, placeholder funds that do lie within the county community services in HHAA that might have been used prior, but now could be used for another acquisition. And that might be the Valley Young Adult Shelter, other things. So it's a little bit of leveling. If it is important to the county to be kind of a co-trust of that property, that's definitely doable. But, you know, it was originally thought that because it's within the city of Spokane limits, the city would own the property, but be, once again, the operating lead with the other partners, knowing that another property could be in another municipality and they would be the lead, but once again, receive operating partnerships. So that was kind of the concept, and a lot of moving parts over the last week or so.
So one of the challenges that I want to be able to make sure that we address is that with the decision in Boise and with the requirement that you know, you cannot enforce outdoor camping unless you've got a facility to accommodate homeless sheltering, and currently the county doesn't have any facility like that we can point to and say, yes, we provide homeless sheltering. It would seem to me that if we're going to make this acquisition, that it should be titled with the county so that at the end of 5 years or at the end of 10 years, wherever that time period is, when that expires, if things change, at least the county has a facility to continue to meet its underlying obligation as determined by the Supreme Court. So, so I look at it from that standpoint, in that certainly we can contract with the city to operate it. We can do all of that kind of stuff, but the underlying obligation for the county to be able to have a facility to meet our legal obligations with regard to enforcing our ordinance, it seems like it would be a lot easier if we had a facility that we could point to and say, here's how we're meeting that directive from the Supreme Court. That's just my opinion. I don't know what Josh and Mary think. Or not.
So part of that will be, I mean, will be true up until the point that we hopefully transition it to bridge housing, which is then people are referred into it to have wraparound services to do that. And I, you know, so I think that's the long-term intent, you know, within a year is to get there. I think too, if we're purchasing the property with CARES dollars that we are in control of, that, I mean, I would think, unless there's something that our risk manager would see differently, I would think we would want to own the building. And then that shows our intent in the regional nature of the homeless, that, you know, that we are being regional partners, of which we have been, you know, all along, which has been funding through CDBG or different means, the HHAA funds, you know, to help guide those. So, yeah, so I guess I would probably be wanting to, you know, have the title of the building and the city run it, unless there's something through Steve Bartell that would let us not want us to be doing that.
Well, the other thing assumes that the condition with regard to homelessness is never going to end. And so this is a 5-year plan. At the end of 5 years, things will change. Things will change no matter what we plan today. So having some kind of certainty with regard to how the county responds to this. And, you know, up to this point, what we've done is we've given money to support efforts within the city, thanks to the city for their leadership. But then the county gets criticized for, you know, well, what are you doing for homelessness? Well, okay, but guess what? We're going to buy a building and we're going to dedicate it to the use of a regional effort with regard to homelessness for COVID and transitional housing after COVID ends, whatever day, year that happens to be in. So anyway, Josh, your thoughts?
I think you and Mary have laid it out pretty well. I mean, I think it sounds like we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Al.
Yeah, Jerry.
Mayor Arian, could you remind the board and myself about I've been on vacation, so I'm trying to get my sea legs back under. The document that I saw for the M&O of the building that had the city and the county and the Vista Foundation, could you just run through that again, that breakdown real quick for everybody? You know what I'm talking about, Arian? And there was a sheet on there that had,
Yeah, sure. And Jared, do you mind going back to screen sharing to that first document? Excuse me, that's the project charter. That's what Jerry's talking about. And once again, at the project charter level, excuse me, this is really high level. We're working with, go ahead and scroll down, Jared, until you see high level funding operating. We are in the process of working with Salvation Army and our partners in creating a pro forma. There we go. So right now, the city of Spokane and Spokane County have committed funding for a 5-year period. And then Avista has and once again, it's a 3-year period. That was oversight. But it really is to invest into, from what I understand from Avista, and Christine is on the phone with us, to create exactly what Commissioner French was talking about. And that is the reality of a regional system, so that we are providing both emergency and the handoffs to those more restorative services. Tisha's on the line and can talk in more detail, but that's really where we're place marking those known operating funds to not be in the same situation we were last year, where we had reserved facilities for different municipalities. We've all realized that that's just not a sustainable model. And that's where we are truly making the operating construct so that it is interwoven, so all of the participating entities have equal say and viability of usage in the site selected.
I appreciate you going over that again. So number 3, where it says the Vista Foundation partnership for 5 years, is that now 3 years? Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, 3 years.
I can clarify that a little bit. This is Christy. Can you hear me?
Hi, Christy. Yeah, hi.
Hi. So I think what we were looking at is that the Avista Foundation's component of that 500,000. So the 500,000 over 5 years was intended to be solicited by our doing some dialing for dollars among business partners that have a stake in this collaboration and its outcomes. What we did as a foundation in our first quarter grant cycle was made a commitment ourselves of $150,000 payable over 3 years. So $50,000 a year for 3 years. And what we'd like to do is, once you guys have your pieces put together, that enables us to take the certainty of that and go forward in collecting additional commitments from other business partners who would be stakeholders to the system and its plan.
Thank you. Whenever we're talking about, but obviously the city and the valley, the city and the valley are in the same place. When you're talking about buying property, at some point in time, this is the public works person in me, Al, I want to know how to operate it, because you can own something and then find out you don't have the funds to actually operate it. So I appreciate that update. Thank you.
Okay, go back to the larger screen then, if you don't mind, Ron. Okay, so any other items or elements of this we haven't discussed yet we need to be aware of?
I think I would just like to make sure that as we, look to move forward with this, that since we know COVID is lasting a while, but I want to know that there is an end to COVID and that at some point we are not going to have to do physical distancing. And at that point in time, I want to kind of solidify that this turns into that bridge housing project. And so whether we put a year time frame on it, and if we need to extend, we can extend. But I want to know that this is the intent of, truly the intent of this project until we get there. It's emergency overnight shelter, but that the intent is to get it to that bridge housing project.
Okay. All right. So, so this is another commitment for CARES funding and stuff. So are we prepared to take an action today, or do you want to, I know that there's a time sensitivity to this with regard to the moving folks out of the arena. And so the quicker we can make a decision, the better others are prepared to be able to respond to that. So, but I certainly don't want to rush the board to a decision. So what would be your pleasure? Anybody? Speaking.
Well, I was just, oh, go ahead, Mary. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm okay moving forward with it. I want to just be very clear, since we've had different costs come to us, that it are on a reimbursement basis and it will not exceed, the 2 million. But it's also, I don't want to, I want to make sure that if we have this property, that we don't need to do, all the overtime. I mean, at Cannon Street to get Cannon Street up. I mean, I guess I just want to make sure that we're being very thoughtful with these dollars and hopefully not using, the full 2 million.
Absolutely. If I can address the issue, whatever money is left over would definitely go back to the county. We're trying to be as conservative as possible with the numbers that we presented, and unfortunately they did increase. But and I agree with you, Mary. If you want to put a timetable on how long you're comfortable with operating this the mission building as a drop-in, I completely agree that it's temporary. And it's only as long as we absolutely have to. Our priority too, at the city, as I know regionally, is to transition it to its intended purpose, and that is to be that bridge housing model. And if I could just also say, a decision today would really help us in planning for this, in construction, and just knowing that we have the dollars committed would be extremely helpful at this time.
Josh?
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable at moving forward today as well. I hope it goes without saying, but I assume all of the prep work has been done. That this facility on Mission is structurally sound. We're not going to find some massive roof issue or foundation issue where half the building has to come down and be rebuilt. I assume you've had your staff do a walkthrough and just make sure there's none of those hidden costs that are going to be there. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable at moving forward. I think that this is important. This is something that it unfortunately is a reality for so many communities and across this nation. And I'm glad we'll be able to do something about it here locally.
So the nature of the request is basically, and correct me if I'm wrong here in terms of the numbers, but what I've gathered is that the all-in cost to buy the property on Mission is 1.3 million. So that includes closing costs and all of those other associated related costs. And then the request is also to dedicate another 700,000 to remodeling for the Mission property as well as Cannon property. Are there any other properties that are going to be remodeled out of the 700,000, or are those the only two? Those are the only two. Okay, so chair is open to a motion.
Mr. Chair, move to approve and authorize the expenditure of up to $2 million of CARES money for the purchase of the facility on Mission near Division to house a new homeless shelter, and also for the cost of remodeling of that Mission facility, as well as the Cannon Street shelter facility. Yeah, I think that does it.
To address the impacts of COVID-19.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yep. Yep. To facilitate our homeless population in the impacts that COVID-19 have. And that so also, do you want something as a part of the amendment that the facility would be owned, the Mission facility to be owned by the county? Mr. Chair, is that the desire?
Certainly provides clarity of direction and stuff, gives the staff the direction they need.
All right, and that the Mission facility would be owned by Spokane County.
Okay.
And I guess I would just like to add in that it's a 1-year time frame that if we can before it gets to that bridge housing. So
Yeah, I didn't include that since that would be more operational outside of the expenditure of the dollars to purchase. But yes, I mean I think that was, yeah.
Would you be okay accepting that as a friendly amendment, Josh?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay,
sure.
so it's
Yeah.
part of the amendment. All right, anything else?
I'll second that.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Let the record reflect, motion passed unanimously. Let's go buy property. All right,
Thank you so much.
thank you, take care.
Thank you, you too.
So that gets us to item number 3, CARES funding follow-up on guidance for nonprofits. Who's the lead on this? I was under the impression that somebody from GSI was going to be here to help us with this conversation. I don't see anybody on the line. We are ahead of schedule. So
Mr. Chair, I thought this conversation, I assumed when I saw it on the briefing sheet that this centered around the ask from World Relief
yes, you're right. It does.
yeah, on if we want to do that. And when I went back through and I read the email that Jerry sent to us on what their ask was, I agree with what Commissioner CUNY brought up last week. Does this put us in a situation where we're essentially pitting, which nonprofits are more worthy than other nonprofits to get additional funding? I think I'd be more comfortable just if a nonprofit needs funding to first direct them to GSI and apply for one of the nonprofit grants that they're offering before we come in with something that exceeds the dollar amounts of what they can get at GSI. Maybe if they've tapped that out and they've, maybe consider it, but before a nonprofit has even approached that avenue that we created, I think, I don't know, it seems like we're creating an issue there by allowing someone to skirt around that process that was created to come directly to us.
Mary?
I would agree with this at this point in time, just because I've had several nonprofits reach out to me, and I think we're going to continue to see that. And I think it's trying to figure out what the real need is, but just like all the businesses as well. And so I think having some kind of means that maybe as GSI looks at the sheet for the nonprofits, it's like, what is their real need? Because partly a lot of the nonprofits actually got the PPP loans, to help them with payroll. But, it's trying to figure out what the true need is out there that we have. Because otherwise we're going to have everybody coming to us and asking for money. And I think we need to figure out, what those needs really are and have them start with the GSI process.
Okay, so the direction is then to ask World Relief to be part of the GSI grant program that we've established for the $10 million. And then we'll see how that goes. And if need be, we can have a conversation later in the future, but otherwise that's the direction for not only World Relief, but any of the other nonprofits that are coming to us as well. Is that a fair summation?
I think so. I mean, I think, again, we had kind of, Second Harvest was its own unique, I think, situation to
Right.
make sure we had the food security. So, I think now that we've kind of got, grant there, but I would like to see how the rest of them go through.
Yeah, and I saw our support for Second Harvest, not necessarily support for a nonprofit, it was support for food sustainability.
Yeah.
And Second Harvest just happened to be the agency that was the lead on that, but our support of that was more about food sustainability and stuff. So, okay, so we beat this one up. Then Carrie Griddle, JAG grant.
It's that time of year again.
Yep.
So
This every year.
every year I have to come in and update you and get your blessing to move forward with an MOU with the city. This year we got about $1,000 more than we got last year. The allocation is now $144,883. And if you'll recall, this is, we actually are only allocated about $17,000 a year. And the city of Spokane is allocated a great deal more. But because we're known as a disparate jurisdiction, because Spokane County has a responsibility of addressing the felonies within the region, we're known as disparate. So years ago, we came up with an MOU between the city of Spokane and Spokane County where on even years, the county would apply for the funding and split it and take 10% for administrative fees. Odd years, the city of Spokane. The application was released last week. We would therefore get about $65,000 that would be split between the two, the sheriff's office and the prosecutors. I've talked to both the prosecutor and the sheriff's office. The sheriff's office would use it to purchase equipment, particularly, I believe, rifles and some handguns and some tasers. The prosecutor's office uses it for support staff that helps with the attorneys in the office that work with property crimes and other felonies. The city then would be signing an MOU that I'll bring back to you for your approval probably within a couple of weeks after it clears there. But every year I have to set this and notify you and get your approval to be able to send that MOU. The grant is due on the 16th. We're given about 3 weeks to get it done. So it really puts us on a fast turnaround. But that's the proposal this year. So how would you like me to proceed?
So comments? Go forth and do great things. Okay.
Thank you.
So do you need a motion to go forth and do great things, or you got it?
I've got it, and I'll
All
bring you
right.
back an MOU for your signature then.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So we're zipping right along
We
here.
are.
We don't have, next item is Lori Markham and Brian Collins on Shrek, and they're not dialed up until 10:30. So why don't we take and try and knock out miscellaneous items? Do either one of you have any miscellaneous items you want to address?
I don't have any today.
So I've got one that is worthy of conversation. Based upon what we discussed earlier and also what we've talked about at SRLGC, I had Jim Amacio go ahead and put together a resolution to appoint John Haley to another term as citizen rep on the SRLJC and just renew his membership. That comes with the support of strategic planning, even though it is inconsistent with the guidelines developed for reappointments. And so when Jim Kaufman and Jim Amacio brought this to me last week and said, we're inconsistent. I said, well, we're also in COVID. And that I was going to recommend that we use the challenges imposed by COVID and the governor inability to do a lot of things like we used to do them, that we move forward for the sake of the stability of the SROJC and the citizen representation. And so I made an executive decision subject to you returning that we just go ahead and appoint him and use COVID as the reason why we're not going through the normal process. Now, if you would like to go through the normal process, we certainly can do that. John's term technically ends September 26th. So we would just have to convene somehow strategic planning, go out and do the search. That puts us in another situation of doing interviews, and we're back to where we are with the vacancy that already exists. So based upon our past conversations and not seeing a real desire to do that, I went ahead and said, let's just get it done. So here's an opportunity for the two of you to say how you screwed it up or you're okay. What would be your pleasure?
I saw it on the consent agenda and I'm fine with it.
Okay, Mary?
I think it's fine. I think he's, you guys have been there longer than I have, but he seems to, provide very good feedback and input. So I'm good with that.
Okay, we will leave it the way it is then.
Mr. Chair, I actually do have a miscellaneous item that I was just going back through my email, seeing things that I had flagged here. We each received, I think we all got this email. We did. But about 2 weeks ago, we each got an email from the treasurer's office about it was their recommendation on a gambling tax. Have either of you gotten a chance to read through that request?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It looks like it's a pretty low dollar amount ask that's associated with this to give some relief to some of our small businesses that have the small gambling rooms and pull tabs. So, I mean, I guess I'll bring that up for discussion.
So I guess, when I talked to Mike Bolts about it, I'd like to actually see what the data is, like how many businesses there are, how much they're doing that are in unincorporated Spokane County versus City of Spokane versus City of Spokane Valley. I think they're the main ones. I mean,
Okay, yeah, the letter here says it's 14 businesses. And last year it was less than $25,000 total collected.
right. And so I just know the City of Spokane Valley has been looking at a similar issue. I don't know what the City of Spokane is doing, so I just wanted to see kind of what the whole picture was as we make that decision. But
So from a historical position, I can tell you that this topic started to be debated back when I was on the city council for the City of Spokane. And the reason for the initial debate was when Northern Quest opened up. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the card rooms in particular, but pull tab operations for the bars, their business was pretty dramatically impacted by the casino. And so the city at the time lowered its gambling tax, and I believe the county did at the same time, to try and assist the industry operators within the county that were being impacted by the tribes. And then there was another action that was taken, I think, with the recession in 2008, 2009, that was also designed to try and help. But the tax has been dropping dramatically over the last decade and a half, if you will, and stuff. So I don't know how many operators are in the unincorporated area of Spokane County. My read on that email was that there were 14 countywide, but I would suspect the majority of them are inside the cities.
I don't know, the way the letter is written, and I mean, I think it would be good for us to get some clarification, but the way this one paragraph is written, it says, county gambling tax revenue has rapidly declined over the last 20 years. This is due in part to rate cuts by Spokane County, but also resulting from dwindling number of businesses subject to the tax in unincorporated county. While over 1.5 million across 64 businesses was collected in 2000, last year, just under 25,000 was collected from 14 businesses. Gambling revenue has not exceeded 53,000 since 2005. So, I mean, the way that's written, I mean, it might be the 14, it might be 14 in unincorporated county, the way that's written. But we'd probably want to check that just to be sure. But I think that's how that paragraph reads. I think it is 14 businesses in unincorporated county and the 25,000 last year. So
yeah, I'd like to be able to get some information to identify how many of them are inside and outside the unincorporated area and stuff. But the reason why the city, and I was there when we did it, reason why we dropped it was because the operators were impacted by the opening of Northern Quest. And they came to the city and said, hey, we don't have the volume that we were making. We've got employees that we're supporting. We need a break. And so we gave them a break. Then we gave them another break and stuff. But it's because competition has shifted out to the casinos. And now, you know, with Spokane Tribe and their casino and Northern Quest, you've got two major competitors. So I'm surprised that some of the restaurants and bars still operate pull tabs anymore. But you know, there's not that much.
Yeah, no, I've seen a few, you know, when I've been at the restaurant, and it is, I mean, you can tell it's a very small little setup they've got. You know, it's not like you used to see, you know, 20 years ago where it would cover an entire wall of a restaurant, you know, kind of thing. I mean, it's a very, very small operation now, it appears.
Right.
So potentially go ahead, Mary, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say, you know, down in Rockford, they're Fredneck's salon. They do a lot down there, which is why it's like, I just want to know what's unincorporated county versus what's in each of the cities, because if we choose to defer or, you know, reduce the amount, it does have an effect on the others. So I just want to be mindful of it. Even I'm not going to approve it, I just want to be mindful of what that is in the other jurisdictions.
Well, and going into a period where we already know that revenues are going to be down, and then to be giving away even another 25 grand, you know, I'd be more comfortable if the treasurer said, we found the savings in our department, and we're going to reduce our budget accordingly, but I didn't see that in the email and stuff. So I don't know where they think we're going to get the savings at yet. But so we'll follow up and get more information, more data, and then bring it back for conversation later on. Okay? Very good. Any other items for conversation? I know we have Lori online with us, but I don't see Brian. He's probably waiting until 10:30.
Yeah, we're a little early.
Yeah, we're a little early.
Half
So any other?
I sent Lori a text, and Tim Henry from Shrek is online. John, do you think this would be okay to talk about the Pioneer thing since it's for last on the agenda?
You bet.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and brief us on the Pioneer Health Services contract extension?
Well, Commissioners, currently we're working with Pioneer Human Services on the phase 2 continued. Mary and Josh, I sent you an email this morning. It's a one-page spreadsheet. Just wanted to provide just a simple overview of what we're talking about here. We'll be coming to you sometime in August on a consent agenda with the middle column, that purple column, That's what we're working on right now. Jim Kaufman's worked on our contract as well as Bartell. We're just now working with Pioneer on it. But sometimes with all this contract talk, it can get confusing on what we're talking about. So the intent of this one pager was just to kind of share with you the different phases of the contracts. We've just got done with the phase 2, which ended June 30th. This is the column on the left in black. And that was under Washington State DOC funds. This next phase that we'll be coming to you with in August is on our 0.1% sales tax. And we've set aside, I think it's around 1.5 million. So this more than this $372,000 ask fits well within the amount of money that we've set aside. But you can see during this next phase, which will be July through the end of February next year, a lot of the key components that is in the contract for Pioneer. And finally, what you'll see on the far right is what we're calling phase 3. This is when we start going operational. And Arian, do you want to add anything to this high-level overview?
The only thing I will add, just so that we have clarity, we are not proposing that the facility is open March 1st. This is something where, and Carrie has a little bit more information on that than I do. We felt that if we actually begin the operating contract that will run the first term, we have some legitimacy in communicating to the Department of Commerce that we are bringing on the staff to open the doors in a legitimate time frame, a month or two before patients or individuals come in, and that might allow us some access to those second year operating grant funds that we might not have, and get us a couple more months worth of use on that, because we're training, doing prep work scenarios, soft launch, well before, day one of operating. So I just wanted to make sure that there was clarity on that. And, as we get further and further, Carrie will assist us in knowing if that's a reality or not.
One of the things you'll see, one of the proposals in phase 2, continue the purple, that we'll be coming to you with is the hiring of 5 key managers, including the director of the staff, getting them hired ahead of time. What you'll see then in the green, the phase 3, is where those leaders would then be bringing on the additional staff to fully staff the facility. The goal right now is in May 2021, where we start going operational. So that's how we've divided out the hiring of staff right now. A proposal for all of you.
What's your ballpark estimate on total number of FTEs that it'll take to run this facility?
Ooh, do you have that, Arian? I'm looking right now. Arian, you still there? Maybe not.
I was on mute, sorry. I'm bringing it up right now,
Yeah.
and it's 365, 24/7. It looks like there's right around 40 to 45 people.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So for the phase 2, it looks like the source for those funds is the 1/10 to 1%
Yep.
Sales tax. Do we have that capacity in the sales tax generation without crowding anybody else out?
Commissioner, it's not in new revenues. It's actually in the set aside
Savings.
from 2017 and 18, which is a fixed reserve fund that Gary can allude to. That's all that we would be using the phase 2 for, no new revenues.
We wouldn't be taken from somebody else. It's
Yeah,
already.
that was my concern, is
I remember that.
robbing somebody else to
No
be able to feed this.
We've set aside 1.5 million it was 18 and 19. So
Okay.
this is well within that.
Okay. So you're looking for us to
No,
say,
nothing. This is just
Update.
we will be coming to you in August with the proposed contract in a consent agenda for that 372. Just want to give you a little more background on it.
okay, it's not in my nature to say nothing. So,
We'll say something.
okay. Any other questions, Josh or Mary?
Nope.
Okay, so thank you for the briefing on that one. And we have Mr. Collins joining us. Thank you, sir. I know that we're ahead of schedule, so but appreciate you jumping up and having us be able to deal with this. So this is the Lori Bryan Show. I'm turning it over to you guys.
Well, thanks. Lori and I thought we'd just update the commissioners on what's going on at Shrek, how the budget's coming along, and some items as we move into summer, head toward fall here. And so, Lori, do you want to start off and kind of give them a snapshot of where we're at?
Sure. So you should have received a one sheet that we provided for you with just some information on, we just completed our first year on July 1st with Shrek as an agency all on its own. And we had a really good year. We were able to accomplish a lot. That sheet provides some overview of the things that we were able to do. One of our key focus points was to get the staffing up. So we were able to do that at about 20% in each area and get our administration fully staffed, which was a big need for us to be able to move forward. We implemented a few programs, one of them being the Report Tech program, which allows some of those report crime check calls to be taken on by a handful of employees and alleviate some of the burden from the 911 call receivers as they're one and the same. So that was a huge undertaking for us that we were able to accomplish. Additionally, we converted all of our training to one training model so that there's consistency among the staff, whether they're learning to be a call receiver or a dispatcher. And with that, we were able to start our cross training, which was one of the major goals for this, was to be able to cross train our staff so that should there be a vacancy or a need to be filled, more than one person could fill that position. So we've started the process of that and are underway in getting that across the board with every area that we have. We are in the process right now of finishing up a couple of major projects that will be beneficial to our agency as a whole for efficiency, but also that will better the service for our citizens and our responders. The biggest one being the EMD change process. EMD is the Emergency Medical Dispatch Program that allows our call receivers, instead of taking a call and transferring it over to a fire dispatcher to finish a medical call, the 911 call receiver will take the call from start to finish and just transfer information over that dispatcher, getting the call out a lot quicker and saving the citizen the burden of having to repeat themselves multiple times. Our hope is that this will save anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds on each medical call, which is a huge deal when it comes to life safety for those citizens. So we are scheduled to go live with that on August 12th. It has been a huge amount of work on the staff. They've had to learn a lot. There's been a lot of training and a lot of adapting, but they're doing a great job with that. And we are excited that on August 12th, we can provide that service. Additionally, one of the other programs that we're looking to wrap up in the next couple of months is what we call Cop Logic, which will allow our citizens to fill out their own crime check reports online with their independent law agencies. We've been working on that for a little over a year. We're still trying to get some of the technology up and running with that, but that's also going to make it a lot easier for citizens to just be able to fill out their own report instead of having to call in and talk to somebody if they so choose. Of course, we're always willing to take those calls, but if they would rather not talk to us and just do it themselves, they're more than welcome to do that. So other than that, we're plugging away. We're doing a lot of small changes that are amounting to big things. And when we sit there and look at what we did this past year, we're very proud of the work that we've put in and know that there's quite a bit more to come, and a lot of ideas and innovations that we have ahead of us in the next few years as 911 develops and grows. And we're excited for that. We're currently in the process of budgeting for 21, and budgeting is going well. I have my finance manager on the phone as well in case you have specific questions for him on what we're doing, but we have created a capital improvement plan for the next 6 years. A lot of that is technology driven, so going past 6 years didn't seem like a very good idea to us. So we've we've focused on that 6-year time frame and have been working with the finance committee on coming up with our 21 budget and just making sure that we're you know, utilizing our resources the best way we can and being good stewards of that tax money. Any questions, anything to add?
Any questions for Lori? Does look like it.
If I could, I'll just jump in. It's this thing that Lori went over real quickly is really the big milestone in this integrated center. And that is going to save, you know, it doesn't sound like a lot of time, 30 to 60 seconds, but when you're holding your breath or not breathing, 30 to 60 seconds can mean the difference between living and not living, which has been our goal all along, is to shave that transferring and the reinterrogation and all that nonsense that we used to have to go through to get that down to as little as possible. And so this was a monumental project, bringing in and retraining all the 911 call takers, and really a big milestone here coming up in August. The other thing I'd like to add is we wrapped up our cost allocation model, which was also a key cornerstone of this project. And that was, if you remember, we're looking for a way to allocate costs across the users of the system in a way that is fair and equitable, that didn't favor one or harm, you know, unduly any agency that was a member, but also was easily explainable and easily auditable, so that it had to meet those criteria. We brought in a consultant, and I think it was about a month and a half ago we wrapped that up, and I'm really happy, and it couldn't be more pleased with the outcome in terms of its fairness and simpleness and its equitability between the users in that center. So it's one of the best models I've seen, and that was also really something that was and really got unanimous support from the board. And so that's police, fire, everybody involved in it unanimously got behind that methodology. So a couple of big you know, milestones that we were able to accomplish that are really moving the center forward and setting it up to be successful long-term.
Very good. Any questions, Josh or Mary?
I just want to say thank you. I know it's been a long haul, Brian and Lori and Arian, to get to where we're at. And Jerry, you're on the board too. You know, one question I have is, where is the city at? Do we think that they're going to come along, or are they going to still stay on their own?
You know, I think at this point, those discussions are always ongoing. I hear things back and forth on where the city is at. It's if they were to approach us, we're happy to have a conversation with them. We haven't officially been approached as of right now, but we're focused on just doing what we need to do for our users and making sure that we're taking care of them and those that are participating with us. So it's really in the city's hands at this point, and we're going to let them decide what's best for them.
Okay, thank you.
Mary, I would also say that during this whole cost allocation discussion and 1/10 reprioritization discussion that we just wrapped up, during that work, we wanted to be very transparent with what we were doing and have the city be able to see what we were doing and understand what we were doing, so that if and when they do come to the table to entertain something, that they don't feel like, you know, we did something in a vacuum and didn't include them and they're not aware of what we're doing. So the new city manager was involved in those discussions, and he sat in. Of course, he didn't vote or anything like that, but he sat in and participated in those discussions about cost allocation and so forth.
The only thing I'm concerned is that we've got, you know, last year we had a bill that went, you know, got to Marcus Riccelli, Representative Riccelli, who was going to put it out there, you know, and what I don't want to have happen is continue to have this go on, where he wants the city of Spokane some portion share of the 1/10 money for them. And so I think we need to still help guide us, if that comes up again, to the rationale as to why that's not appropriate.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that focus on that conversation needs to be that the city of Spokane is receiving quite a bit of service from Shrek still, based off that 1/10 money. We are supporting the whole entire radio system, including SPD and SFD. We provide all of Crime Check, all those things that that money is dedicated to. We're providing, and we work with them. We absolutely include them in any of our decision making and process when it comes to those particular items. So while I understand the mindset of wanting to get that 1/10, that 1/10 is being used for the city of Spokane.
Okay, very good. So yes, so probably as the legislative session starts, we'll probably want to make sure that we have all that available.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Josh, you have any comments, or you okay?
I just wanted to thank you for what you're doing. I mean, every time we get updates from you, it just sounds like things are getting better and better. And so, you know, I know it's a lot of work. It was, I think that there was a lot of heartache, you know, around the community, but you know, you've all done just marvelously at it. And you know that it goes to Jerry as well. Thank you for everything you've done, and Lori and Brian and Arian. I mean, you've all done fantastic. So thank you for everything you've done.
One of the things that I've appreciated the most, this is one of the best boards I think I've ever seen. And when it got rough, and I remember telling Lori, hang in there, Lori, this will start to be fun someday. It didn't seem like it at the time, but it'll get there. And Brian's great leadership, everybody, you know, stayed on task, didn't get, you know, off the trail, and it's looking really good. I'm very excited about this August date. This is why we did the whole thing. This is why we put up with all this stuff. And it's just exciting to see it just about to happen. So, and Lori, thank you so much. You are just doing such a good job. And Brian, you're a great leader of our group. And I know I speak for all of us on the board. We appreciate your leadership.
Thank you very much. And thank you, commissioners, also for your support through all of this. We always knew we could depend on you if we had a concern or an issue come up. So we're very grateful for you and the support you've provided us.
Yeah, the biggest advantage we gave you is we didn't put any politicians on your board. So.
Exactly.
I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah.
Look at Brian. Yeah, the smartest thing ever.
So Brian, you were talking a little bit about the improved response times and stuff. So how close are you to what you would consider to be your optimum response time? I mean, are you 90% there, 100% there? I mean, with any system, you're always looking to improve, but where are we relative to your satisfaction level?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Al. I would say 90%. I'd say we're making a huge step with this. This is the biggest portion. The remaining, say, 10% or maybe a little bit more of that will eventually come when we all get on a single CAD. We're operating off of one software system. Basically, we're operating off of a couple, you know, still right now between police and fire. So when that is cleaned up, we should get the maximum efficiency out of the system. And of course, when the employees fully transition into an integrated environment, which I'd say they're probably well along the path right now.
So in terms of your target date, when do you think we will be as close to being efficient as possible? Is that the end of this year? Is that a year away? Is that next week? What is your time frame for being able to achieve the things that you'd like to be able to achieve?
That's dependent on where we go with a new computer-aided dispatch system, I think. That's the big that's kind of the elephant in the room, is that the current system has been challenging on the police side, the new system. There's some talk about police looking for a different system. So, you know, that some of that timeline, Al, is driven by that decision. I don't see it happening in the next, you know, very short term, but and even if we decided to do something different, you know, a project like that, as Arian can tell you, it takes a year or two.
Shake out.
flush out and get running. So we're still a ways away from that, I think.
Okay, great, thank you.
But that's a small piece.
Right.
And we're getting the big piece right now, which is huge.
Terrific.
Hey, Arian,
Okay.
a shout out to you too. This success, you have your fingerprints all over this project, and we appreciate it. You hung in there with us too, so.
Okay. Any final comments, either Mary or Josh? Okay, thank you for joining us, Lori and Brian, and thanks for all your great work, and you too, Arian. All righty.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you.
Have a good day.
All right. In the meantime, have any of you come up with any additional miscellaneous items you want to talk about? Okay, so this afternoon, we do not have anything scheduled other than miscellaneous. I left that open so that if there's anything that we wanted to move to this afternoon, we could. But in the absence of that, we do have additional time tomorrow afternoon in that schedule. And so unless one of you object, I'm going to go ahead and cancel this afternoon's strategic planning meeting. And then we will reconvene tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock at the regional COVID response. Again, you can Zoom in or you can be there personally, either way. And then we'll have a couple presentations for tomorrow afternoon. So unless there's anybody that's got anything else for the good of the cause. All right, we're adjourned. Oh, wait a minute, Josh, you're going to say something?
No, I was just going to say I saw Jared in the room, but it looks like he's left. I was just going to ask if he has anything or is hearing anything from news outlets or.
We'll run out and ask him real quick.
I don't know.
His light's on. He's in there.
So I did get a request on Friday for on-camera interviews with regard to the renaming of Hangman Creek. And I declined that, saying it's too early in the process, and sent the TV crews to interview Doug Chase, since Doug is the one that's leading that effort and stuff. So, and that's follow up to the newspaper article in last week. But other than that, that's the only media situation that I'm aware of here recently and stuff. So,
Okay.
Jared has taken off. He's not in his office. I saw his light. I thought it was on.
Okay, no problem. I was just gonna. Sometimes it's good to know kind of what kind of calls he's fielding. But no problem.
By the way, I don't know if anybody else saw it. I texted you your county spotlight where you had Doug and the parks director of the city on there. That was very well done. That was very well done.
Thank you.
okay, well, that completes all the business before the board, and so we are adjourned. Thank you.
All right.